Hey guys, how's it going? So today what we're working on again is factoring when we have a coefficient in front of the x squared other than a 1 being there. So this example 1 has a 2. So since that 2 is in front of the x squared, you have to factor it a little bit differently. So what we're going to do today is factor and solve it. So example 1, we did this one yesterday, but let's remember we wanted factors of a times c and that had a sum of b. And remember when we had our a and our b and our c, that's what we're talking about when we refer to a times c and sum of b. So we wanted factors of a negative 6 because we're doing a 2 times negative 3 for the a times c value. That got us a sum of 5. And we found that to be negative 1 and positive 6 because negative 1 plus 6 got us 5. So remember how we split this up? We had 2x squared minus x plus 6x minus 3. We split up that 5x using the two factors that we got. So negative 1x plus 6x would get us back to the 5x, but we're splitting it up in order to group it. So we group the first two and the last two terms together, and we take out GCFs out of each group. So I would take an x out of the first group, leaving me with 2x minus 1. And then plus, out of the second group, you can take a 3, leaving us again with 2x minus 1. And don't forget, we have our equals 0. I should put that back up here. And then remember, we wanted the same thing in the parentheses, and we got that, 2x minus 1 and 2x minus 1. So we bring down the 2x minus 1, and then whatever's left. We have an x plus 3 left. So this is equal to 0. So now we have to do the solving part. So remember how we did this before. We set each piece equal to 0 and solved each piece. So let's do that. So the 2x minus 1 comes down and is equal to 0. And the x plus 3 comes down and is equal to 0. Then we got to solve each piece. So over here, I need to add that 1 over to get rid of him. And I get 2x equals 1. And our last step there would be to divide by the 2. So we would get x equals 1/2. So there's one answer. Now we've got to do this piece, so I'm going to just bring it over this way a little bit. So we would have to subtract that 3, and then we get x equals negative 3 for our other solution. Great, so let's try example 2. This was also like one that we did yesterday. So we want factors of a times c. So we're looking for two things that multiply and get us a times c, which would be 3 times negative 8. So that would give us a negative 24. That are going to add and give us our b term, which was positive 10. So yes, this was the one we did yesterday, I believe. So we had a negative 2 times a 12, because negative 2 plus 12 also gives us positive 10. So again, we split up that middle term. We keep the 3x squared, and then we're going to have minus 2x plus 12x minus 8, and still equal to 0. And then we group. So I group the first two together, the last two together. Out of the first group, well, nothing in common with the 3 and the 2, but they both have an x, so we take the x out, leaving us with 3x minus 2. Bring down your plus, And then out of 12 and 8, we could take a 4 out, leaving us with 3x minus 2, which is great because remember we wanted those to be the same in the parentheses. 3x minus 2, 3x minus 2. Perfect. So we bring the 3x minus 2 down, and whatever's left, x plus 4. So x plus 4 comes down. And now we have to set each piece equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to come over here. My first piece was 3x minus 2. So I set that equal to 0. And my second piece is x plus 4. So I set that equal to 0. So our first one, we would have to add that 2 over, giving us 3x equals 2. Then we need to divide by the 3. So we would get x equals 2 over 3, 2/3. So there's one answer. And here we would have to subtract that 4 over. So we would get x equals -4, which will be our other answer. All right, let's do example 3. Got A, B, and C. We want two things that multiply and give us A times C. So we need to do 6 times 5. That would give us a 30. And we want those to add together and get us our B term, which is 17. Okay, so factors of 30. We could do 1 and 30, 2 and 15. Hey, 2 and 15 will work, right? That would get us a 17. So there we go. 2 times 15 gives us a positive 30. 2 plus 15 gives us a 17. So we're going to take that and split up our middle term. 6x squared plus 2x plus 15x plus 5 equal to 0. And we have to group. So we group our first two and the last two together, and we need to take out a GCF of each piece. So what can we take out of 6x squared plus 2x? They both have an x, and the 6 and the 2 are both divisible by 2, so we can take out a 2x. That would leave us with 3x plus, well, 2x, take out a 2x, so we would only have a 1 left there. Looking at our second group, we could take a 5 out of both of those. So I bring down that plus sign, I take out the 5, and I would get 3x plus 1, which is great. I have 3x plus 1 and 3x plus 1. So the 3x plus 1 factor comes down, and then what do we have left? A 2x plus 5. So there we go. Now we need to solve. So 3x plus 1 equals 0, and 2x plus 5 equals 0. So over here we need to subtract this 1. We get 3x is equal to -1, and divide by the 3. So we get x is equal to -1/3. One answer done. Over here we got to subtract over this 5. So we get 2x equals -5. Divide by the 2, and we get x equals -5/2. Second answer. Got it. All right, one more here. Example 4. Again, we have A, B, and C. Now, one other thing here, we haven't totally talked about this yet, but before you factor these, if there is a GCF, you actually do want to take that out. So if you look at the 12, the 2, and the 4, those are all actually divisible by 2. So when I make this equal to 0, do you remember how we did this before, like with the -1? We were going to divide everything by 2 because it's all divisible by 2. it's basically gonna, just like you would reduce a fraction, it reduces the quadratic. It's just gonna make it a little bit easier to deal with. And we can do this because 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So we would get 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we have a 6x squared minus 2 divided by 2 would just be 1. So minus 1x in the middle. And 4 divided by 2 gives us a 2. So we have a 2 at the end, and our other side is still just 0. So then look, these are like much smaller numbers, so that'll be a little bit better to deal with. We still need to do A, B, and C. Remember, this would be like a -1 in front of the x. So when we look for our factors, we're looking for two things that multiply to get us AC. So we would do 6 times -2 and get a -12. And then our middle, our B term, is a -1. So that's what we want them to sum to. So what can we do with -12 and those factors to get us a -1 as a sum? Well, let's see. We could do 1 and 12. I don't think that would get us a -1. 2 and 6. Nope, those are still too far apart. What about 3 and 4? So a 3 and a 4 would get us a 12. I need to make one of them negative to get me a -12. And I also want them to have a sum of -1. So which of those should we make negative? It should be the 4. That way we end up with a -1 with the sum. So 3 -4 get us a 12. 3 plus -4 gets us a -1. So we split up our middle term. 6x squared plus 3x minus 4x minus 2 equals 0. And we group. Uh-oh. Do you see how we have a minus sign in with our parentheses? Do you remember what we talked about yesterday? If this right here, that in the middle is a minus sign, what you have to do is change that sign on the inside so that if you redistributed that negative, it would get us back to what we had up here. Okay? So we switched it to a +2. So then we factor. I can take out a 3 and an x out of this group, leaving me with 2x plus 1. And I can take out a 2 out of both of these, so I bring down that minus sign that I had, take out the 2, and I would get 2x plus 1, which is great because they match. So we have 2x plus 1, and what's left is the 3x and the -2. So we've got that. Now we need to solve. So I'm going to come up here. 2x plus 1 equals 0, and 3x minus 2 equals 0. Solve each piece, subtract the 1 from both sides, you get 2x equals -1, divide by the 2, and we get x equals -1/2. Up here, we add this 2 over, so we get 3x equals 2, divide by 3, and we get x equals 2/3. All right. So what you guys should be doing now is getting your clue worksheet from the table on by the door, and you need to work with some other people in the class, walk around the clue stations, and solve the quadratic there. Find the clue, mark that off on your paper, and then when you finish, you should have a suspect with an operation and a location. So circle those on your paper and turn it into the tray before you leave class today. Even if you don't get it done, go ahead and just turn in what you have. You should be able to get it done though. So, good luck working on that. Please behave and be kind to whoever your teacher is today, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.